This is the Peace, Power, and Purpose podcast, where we spread awareness for men's mental health and spread the gospel of Jesus Christ. Be sure to like and subscribe on YouTube and Spotify. New episodes drop weekly. This is the Peace, Power, and Purpose podcast, and I'm your host, Steve. Tonight, I am joined by Denny Giamazzo. He is the author of Wired for Action. He's a podcast host for Be the Standard. He is a speaker where he talks about lessons in leadership and overcoming his personal journey through healing and resilience. And he's also a combat veteran. He served in the United States Army as an infantry team leader. Denny, thank you for coming on the show tonight, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. You're 20 minutes down the road, but we're doing this virtually anyways. Let's do it.
Yeah. Well, the long-term goal, man, is to have a studio eventually. I've been doing this 6 months. So that's a long-term goal. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, man. Well, hey, just for the people that are listening and watching right now that haven't read your book, I don't want to give away too much because I want you guys to go pick up a copy of this book like I did. And I want to start out with kind of the beginning of your story, man. So my goal with this podcast is to really get to know the man more so than just the title, the job title. So I'd like to start out with just the beginning, man, childhood. And I know that's a kind of a unique story, and I want you to share whatever you're comfortable with that, man.
Yeah, man. It's usually I just start by saying, I grew up pretty rough, in and out of foster care. My mom passed away from AIDS when I was about 11. Never met my father. But yeah, man, my story, it starts in Worcester, Massachusetts. That's where I'm from. It's a very blue collar city. I grew up, I started premature. I was born about 2 months early. I was a little less than 2 pounds when I was born. You could hold me in just the palm of your hand like this. And I had tubes in my chest to breathe and wasn't supposed to make it, but somehow did. My mother was a drug addict, heavy into, heroin, cocaine, anything she'd get her hands on. Yeah, that was the start. And I lived with her till I was about 5. And, living with her was obviously no picnic. We were poor, no, very limited clothing and no furniture and things like that. And, her job, she was a prostitute. And so she would leave me in the apartment for, anywhere from 3 to 5 days at a time to go do her work and try to support us as best she could, and her addiction as best she could, I guess. But yeah, that was kind of what growing up with her was like, in addition to, physical abuse. And, she was very obviously neglectful, leaving me, but, putting my hand on the stove and putting cigarettes out on me, and, a lot of yelling, a lot of swearing and screaming. And, that's kind of what brought me to the next chapter, which was foster care when I was about 5. Landed there.
Yeah, I want to share this real quick, man. I remember reading this in the book, and I want our listeners to hear this story. So I started reading your book in the car rider line. I have a 7-year-old son who's in 2nd grade, and when you shared the first part of the book, when you would sit in that chair and eat that peanut butter, dude, that was hard to read, man. As a a father of still kind of a younger child, that was hard to read, man. And I my heart just sank reading that. And I applaud you to have the courage to share that story, because that's got to be weird to just have that out for everybody to, to be able to read and to hear about it, man. Because I just felt bad for you, dude. That was hard as a father reading that.
Yeah, and I appreciate you saying that. And definitely, I don't want to say it's gotten easier to share or whatever, because it I get goosebumps every time I talk about this shit. And
Sure.
it's because it does, in that type of pain or whatever you want to, call it, it doesn't go away. And, I can still, remember what it's like to sit in that chair like I did it yesterday, and scrape the peanut butter with my hands just to eat something. So, I mean, I appreciate you saying that. And, the best part, or the best thing to come out of sharing situations like that and experiences like that is, I've had countless people message me and text me and whatever, to say, shit, man, mine might not have been as bad, but it was pretty bad. Or actually, people have told me stories that are even worse. So, um, the whole point of the book really was to share those experiences. And, I think a lot of times when you go through shit like that, you feel like you're on this island by yourself, and you feel like, you're the only one that's experienced these things, especially when you're a kid, right?
Yeah.
Because you're around a lot of kids, who aren't going through those same things. And it's almost like you think they know this about you, but they don't.
Mhm.
And so you're like guarded your entire life because of these experiences. And so you don't share them, you just bottle it all up and try to push through life. But again, what I've seen in sharing is that, you know, a lot of people have gone through hard things, and, the whole objective here is to let people know that they're not alone.
Yeah.
And I'm learning that, you know, my mission here is spot on, because I'm not alone, and it's
Mhm.
making me, feel a lot better about that as well. Not that I'm happy other people experience this, but I'm learning that I have more and more people, especially even in the military community, that I can lean on that have been through, hard things like this. So
Mhm. And I think too, though, for coming from a perspective of being a father, a single parent, it makes me really try to just do better, man. Like
yeah,
to really like not take my kids for granted and to realize like, hey, I need to be more self-aware when he does something where he needs to be punished or where my anger may want to come up. Like, just I don't know how to explain it, man. Because let's just be honest. Like in the veteran community, podcast, social media, there's a younger audience that watches the shows and they love hearing about the stories and the schools we go through in the military. But
yeah,
from a parent's perspective, man, that really jumped out at me. And I just wanted to share that with you because I don't know what kind of feedback you get, as far as the book goes, but as a parent,
yeah,
that really just jumped, and I was like, "Damn, we're just starting this book, and I'm already like falling apart in the car rider line trying to hide it." It's like
yeah,
so.
yeah. And that's another thing, man. I'm shit. I just turned 43, right? And I'm still hopeful at some point that I could be a father.
Yeah.
Um, and I think about obviously the things that I went through, and it's refreshing in a way that if I'm blessed with that, which I'm obviously very hopeful for, that, my kids will never have to experience that. And even my sister or my cousin, because we'll talk about this, but my aunt ended up adopting me. And so my sister, right, she's really biologically, she's my cousin. And, her life wasn't easy. She went through a lot as well. Not the same things, but a lot of things. And I've seen the way she's raised her kids, and along with my brother-in-law, who's, one of my best friends, and, her kids don't have a clue what real trauma looks like, or, any of that
Mhm.
stuff. And, you know, I give her all the credit in the world for really, breaking that cycle at us.
Yeah.
So my goal is to continue that at some point. And I look forward to it.
Yeah.
Um, But, you know, after that point in my life where, I was with my mother, and, eventually got taken from her by the state and placed into foster care. And I'm sure you read about this as well, but my foster mom, she was the best.
Mhm.
Absolutely phenomenal. First person to show me what love looked like at about 5.5. And she was with me my entire life, at least a part of my life for my entire life. She was at my wedding. She went to my high school graduation. She was really just there for everything. Even when I got home from Afghanistan, she was at the party, having beers with me. And man, it wasn't all bad, right?
Yeah.
I get to look back and be like, I did have a phenomenal woman to at a young age to show me what love looked like. And so, um, yeah, I mean, the book's heavy. Obviously, it gets into some crazy stuff, but I love to highlight that because there's so many kids who went all the way up and came all the way up without experiencing that, and I'm very
Mhm.
grateful for it.
Yeah, it sounds she was a wonderful woman just from what, I remember reading in the book, and,
Yeah,
I just think, like I said, and it's cool that you shared that along with everything else because I think that's important for people to know and to read about.
sure.
It keeps it for a parent, it definitely keeps me, more focused. Like, "Hey, like when my son screws up, or even the story about, and I don't want to give all the book away, but like when you were talking about going into the store and you wanted the He-Man toy and then you stole it. And I was like, damn, like, I mean, I went back to the 80s in my head, and then I was thinking, well, my son, I gotta like make sure he's not, he's
Yeah,
taken care of. But it's just weird. I don't know how to explain it, dude. Like it just
it's
kind of stirs up stuff in you, and it's
yeah, and in that particular incident, it kinda just speaks to, the mentality and the headspace of a drug addict, right?
yeah, yeah,
Your son's in the store, he's asking for a toy, and your response is, "Yeah, you can have it, but you're gonna have to steal it."
right.
Not like, "Hey, I'm your mom, you want that? I'm gonna steal it for you.
Hmm.
You gotta steal it." Uh, it's wild. Again, what the headspace of a drug addict really looks like, and their, inability to sacrifice anything for anyone else that's not beneficial to them, right?
Right, right.
Um, and, a simple like, "Hey, no, you can't have that toy," would have been fine.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
to put it in a young kid's head, like, "Yeah, you can just have whatever you want, just steal it," you know? And again, that speaks to parenting like you're going back to, and, so it just makes you think.
Mhm. Definitely, man, definitely. Well, let's get into school and sports a little bit. Let's kind of like maybe move forward a little bit
Sure.
from, the early child to where you got into foster care and now you're in school and you're playing sports. You wanna talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so, I did foster care for about 2.5 years. I was there, for a bit. My aunt pulled me out of foster care. She adopted me. So it was me, her, my sister, who's really my cousin, like I said earlier. And eventually she ended up marrying a guy who became like a stepfather. Uh, awesome, phenomenal guy. I love him to death. But, not really, didn't really have the capacity himself to be a father. So he was just kind of, I call him a provider. And he did that. I had clothes, I had food, I had basic stuff. We didn't have the extras. We weren't going on family vacations and stuff like that. But, I had, again, food and clothes. And so grew up in a very small town when my aunt brought me out there. It was Thompson, Connecticut. I think at the time there was 6,000 people in the town. So my high school graduating class was, I think, roughly 80 kids, 80, 81. And yeah, I played football, I played basketball. I started working on farms when I was about 14, just throwing hay bales and anything to make money because if I wanted extra stuff, I had to buy it myself. High school came around and I told my mom I wanted a cell phone. She was like, "Buy one." So I think when I got my first cell phone, I saved up like $800 because I had to pay this huge. I had to buy the phone, then I had to pay like a security deposit because I had no credit, and all these things. And but yeah, I've kind of been just making my way through things, for basically my entire life. But uh, high school was fun. It was, again, I was an athlete. Um, I got along with everybody. I wasn't really. I got in some fights in high school. I got in some trouble a little bit, but I was an aggressive kid. I was angry because of how I grew up, and I was physically abused by an uncle um, until I was about 13 when I finally fought back and just really put a beating on him, and I hurt him really really bad. But yeah, I mean, I was a good kid for the most part, just very aggressive, and I think that's what made me a decent athlete was
Yeah.
just the aggression.
And, obviously, it's understandable, like, reading about your story. I mean, I could see why you'd be aggressive and have anger because it's gotta go somewhere at the end of the day.
Yeah, yeah, and unfortunately, a lot of times as a kid, it went to the wrong places, right? It just I I'm not the biggest guy in the world. I'm not the smallest, but I would fight anyone. I wasn't afraid of anyone. I was like, let's do this. I had aggression, and I didn't care who felt it, but somebody was gonna feel it, and that's just unfortunately that's just how I was growing up as a kid. And I wasn't always like that, but there were definitely um, moments where that showed, um, substantially.
So you're going through school, you're playing sports, small high school. So Where do
Yeah.
you go from that point? You go straight into college, or do you take a little break and then start college? Can you kinda walk us through that?
Yeah, so after high school, I went straight to college, probably, hindsight looking back, it was probably a bad decision for me. I was a very average student at best. Uh, I didn't wanna go to college. I didn't really wanna I hate school. I hated school, I should say. I actually enjoy learning more now. But, getting out of high school, I had a guidance counselor that knew I worked on farms for years, and he basically told me that college wasn't for me. So, I don't know if it was a week or 2 later, but I submitted 5 college applications, got into all 5, and decided I was going to college because he said I shouldn't do it.
Right.
Uh,
Prove him wrong.
yeah, hindsight, again, being what it is, it probably would have been more beneficial for me to go straight into the army or the military. But I mean, I don't, I was a young kid and I didn't want to hear what I shouldn't do.
Right.
I was going to do what I wanted, and all my friends were going to college. So that's what I did.
Yeah.
So I went to Central Connecticut State University, uh, straight there, did 3 years of college, um, just did just enough to pass. Didn't do anything fancy to get good grades or try to earn scholarships or grants or anything like that. Just breeze through. And after my third year, I basically couldn't afford to go back. College was too expensive for me, and the loan department was closed. I couldn't keep taking out loans, and so that's when I decided I was going to take a year off. And I took a year off and got a job at Home Depot, and which was my college job anyways. I was working through college, and I was working at Home Depot in the paint department, and yeah, that's what I did for a bit there.
And that's where you were encouraged by someone while you're working there to join the army, correct?
Yeah, so I was working in the paint department, and an army recruiter walked in. He had a bunch of properties that he owned, and he was renovating, and they were all rental properties. And he walked in to get some paint, and he was in uniform. He was just getting out of work. He was a recruiter, and so we started talking. I thought the uniform looked cool, even if it was those ACUs, which was shit. I didn't realize it at the time, right? But I thought they looked cool. I thought he seemed like a good dude.
Yeah.
We started talking, and um, I was broke at any given point. I was lucky if I had $10 in my bank account. And he started talking to me about the financial benefits of joining the Guard in Massachusetts. And he told me there was a $20,000 enlistment bonus, and he told me that any student loans I had, the Army would pay $20,000 of those loans and absorb that. To me, that just sounded like all I really needed to hear. I was always curious about the military. I was always, an athlete in shape and, patriotic. I always loved my country and respected the military and our first responders and all those communities. When I was presented that opportunity, I just dove right into it and was like, yeah, but if I want to go, if I'm going to go, I want to be in the fight. I want to go in Iraq. I want to go to Afghanistan. I want to deploy. I want to be in it. The problem with that is I jumped right in. I didn't do any homework. I didn't do any research. I had no clue what Army Rangers were. I didn't know what Green Berets were. I didn't know what SEALs were. I had no idea. You would have thought I grew up in a box, right, as a guy, because I didn't even know what those things were. That's the
Yeah.
truth.
Yeah.
That's how ignorant to the military and that process and everything I was. Um, but
What year did you enlist? What year was it?
so I enlisted in May of 2006. If I stayed
Okay.
in, this would be 20 years this spring.
Yeah, wow, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I uh I enlisted May 2006, went to boot camp in end of August, August 26th or something like that of 2006, and that's it, man.
Okay, nice. I graduated OCS in March of '06. That's funny.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
that's funny, man. Yeah. But, I would I know back in '06 there was I'm trying to think, man, like, I don't think there was really any movies out about team guys or anything like High Speed. It was still because the war was still kinda in the early stages, but that is funny to hear. We're very similar in age, and to not know about SF or the teams, and
Yeah,
that's
man.
funny,
I didn't
man.
know. I had no idea. I had one buddy who was like a reservist MP who had been to
Okay.
Iraq, and
Yeah.
that's all I knew. I didn't know shit, man. I didn't know
Yeah.
anything. I do recall a store manager at Home Depot. She was in the Navy, and at the time, I think she had been in 20 plus years, and I do remember her talking to me about joining the Navy. And me telling her, no, I'm going to join the army because I want to go into the fight and this and that. And I don't remember her specifically calling out Navy SEALs, but I remember her saying that like, oh, well, if you want to be in the fight, like Navy's the place to be. There's some badasses in the Navy. But I don't remember her specifically calling out like SEALs or anything like that. I just remember her telling me like the Navy's doing work over there. You can be on the ground. And I was like, really? Like in my mind, like if you're in the Navy, you're just on a ship,
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
man, if I think it's always fun to look back and think like, oh well, if I knew this or that, what I would have done, and if I had known,
Hmm.
I probably would have done the Navy, uh, tried to get into the SEAL program just because my grandfather was Navy.
Yeah, that's right.
That if I had done all the due diligence, I think that's probably what I would have done.
Hmm.
Um, but I can't. Who knows? I didn't. So,
We didn't have the
but
resources back then though, man. You didn't have, like, the internet like it is now, and
yeah,
it just it I mean, it was out there, but not like it is today. I mean, so it's
yeah.
kinda
And the funny
understandable.
part too is, man, my college roommate was a huge like he was always playing Call of Duty and
Mm.
SOCOM and this and that,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
if I had even paid attention to him instead of just
Yeah.
like, who knows, I might have learned something.
Yeah, right, that's
But
funny.
yeah, man. So I went in the guard, I went in the infantry, and I was actually supposed to go to Iraq in 2007. Uh, Almost just a few months after basic training, I was supposed to go to Iraq, but I had a medical issue at the end of basic training where we had completing all our infantry training. We got our cross rifles. We were in our breakdown week where we were cleaning all the equipment and leading up to graduation, and all of our certifications and training was complete and all of that. And I had to go to dental to get a wisdom tooth pulled. And actually, I was supposed to get both of them pulled on the bottom. And I went and I went on a Friday. Graduation was the following Wednesday, and I went to dental on Friday and got my bottom right wisdom tooth pulled. They said, we're going to pull this one today. Come back on Monday. We'll pull the left one. And I don't know why they didn't pull both the same day, but they didn't. Um, so they pulled the right wisdom tooth over the weekend. I was in tremendous pain. My neck was bulging. If I just touched my neck, it felt like I was getting like stabbed. It was incredibly painful. And so Sunday, I went to my drill sergeant and told him something was wrong. And initially, he was just pissed that I didn't shave. But I told him that, just a razor to my skin was painful, and so I didn't shave. And he told me to go fucking shave anyways, and I did. And I went back to him a few hours later and was like, something's wrong here. Like I need to go to the hospital. And
Yeah,
so I went to the hospital. It was probably, I don't know, maybe noon, 1 o'clock. It was right around lunchtime. And by 3 o'clock, I was out cold in surgery.
damn,
And the infection that I had spread through my throat and was closing my airway. And the
damn.
doctor told me that if I hadn't gone to the ER that afternoon, I might not have made it through that night of sleep because my airway was closing that rapidly with the
Damn.
infection. And so they had to give me a trach. They sliced my throat up over here, like a long gash I have here, where they had to drain the infection out. They drained a little bit of infection here, a little bit on this side because it was spreading everywhere. So when I woke up 14 hours later, I had a dressing that all these tubes were just coming out of my throat, and the infection was draining onto this dressing and this mat
Damn.
that I had uh, on my chest. And that was in December. That was a few days before graduation. So I missed my graduation. I didn't actually walk, and yeah, I missed that Iraq deployment a few months later because I still had an open wound in my throat. So that was fun.
Did the drill sergeant feel bad about that, man, since he told you to go back and shave?
Uh,
Did you ever talk to him after
you know
that?
what? That particular drill sergeant, I don't even think I ever saw again. But I did go back to after Christmas, they sent me home for Christmas. After Christmas, I went back down to Fort Benning to get medically cleared, and I was there for about a month. And actually slept in the drill sergeant bay where my drill
That's
sergeant's
right.
office was and everything
That's
like
right.
that. They were awesome. My senior drill sergeant is still a friend of mine. He's or now he's a friend of mine, I should say, on Instagram and whatnot. He's retired now, but yeah, that was a hell of an experience. And
Yeah.
yeah, I was pissed, man, because we heard about the Iraq deployment in like November or December, so I knew it was coming
Mhm.
um, before I even got out of basic training. Because one of the guys in my class for basic training was in my unit, and he had heard about it already. So I knew it was coming, and I was excited for it, but I missed it.
What was it like going from Massachusetts down to Georgia? Like, what was that like for you? I mean, that's a
uh,
big culture. I mean, I know it's the military and it's on base, but still, I mean, it's gotta be a
it
culture
was it
shock.
it was a culture shock just because I mean you're meeting people from all over, right?
Yeah.
These dudes from like Arkansas, Texas, you name it. There's people from everywhere, and then I got there's guys from the hood there and from New York and Chicago and different places too. So you're meeting everyone, and man, it is a culture shock for sure. Some of these guys are former gang members or
Yeah.
guys who were gang members, 2 weeks ago,
Right.
and so it's crazy what you see in the military and guys just trying to get their lives in order and serve their country. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I do remember an encounter with this dude from Arkansas. He's probably like 6'4", super skinny. His last name is Little. And I remember I said something. We were on the range and I said something. He goes, I don't understand you when you talk. And I was like, what do you talk? What do you mean? And he goes, when you talk, I don't know what you're saying. And I was like, what do you mean you don't know what I'm saying? And he goes, see, I don't, he goes, I don't even know what you just said. I was just like, oh my God. And it was funny too because he was so smart, but when you heard him talk, you would have thought he was like special needs, but
Wow.
smart, incredibly bright dude.
Yeah, that's funny.
But yeah, no, like you said, man, it's a culture shock. You meet people from everywhere. It's interesting.
Yeah, that's funny, man. Well, being from Nashville, when I was out on the West Coast, everybody's like, "Oh, you must love country music, and you're from Nashville." I was like, "Nope, a metalhead, dude. Like nothing about it. Like I have nothing about it, man." But
Well, that's
back then it wasn't cool to be from Nashville. Nashville, you got made fun of for it. So now
uh,
times have changed, my friend.
yeah. And now, like, when I moved down here, one of the first questions I get, people are like, "Oh, so do you like country music?" And like, the truth is, I do. I actually do
Yeah,
like country music. I
yeah,
like I like it a lot. But I also love metal. I also love rap. I listen to everything.
yeah,
I if
yeah.
it's good music, I want to hear it. So,
Right.
but no, I do like the seeing the live bands out here, and um, yeah, I'm glad I moved here, man. I like it a lot.
Yeah, it's a good place to be, man. It's when you've been here most of your life, it can get old, but it is overall, it's a great place. It's a good place to have kids and
Sure.
have a family and stuff. But yeah.
Well, one of the things I've found down here compared to the up north in Massachusetts where I'm from is just the values people
Mhm.
have down here and politically and all of those things are far more aligned with my values and the way I
Right.
think and
Right.
so that's been refreshing. But doesn't mean I don't miss home some days too. I was texting with Nick Lavery last week and he's just checking in, man. How's everything going? And we got to get some lunch and some FaceTime, this and that. And I told him, I'm like, man, I have no regrets moving down here, but you're from Mass too. You know what it's like, man. I miss home sometimes. I really do. No regrets.
I've always wanted to go to Boston. I've never been there. Always wanted to go see the Green Monster. Never
Hey,
been
man,
there.
if you make your way up there, man, we can make it happen. I'll be a tour guide for you if you
Awesome.
want.
That'd be great, man. That'd be
I
fun.
love it's a great city. I love the city because it's manageable. You can navigate it well, and
Okay.
that's what I think about Nashville, man. You can get around this city easy.
Yeah.
This isn't New York. This isn't
Right.
Miami. This isn't. That's one of the reasons I moved here is because I can't move to a New York or Chicago or
Mhm.
some congested city. I lose my mind.
Yeah. Although traffic's getting worse here.
The traffic
Remember
is
that post you did the other day,
oh,
dude?
dude, it, and it's not even just the traffic. Like genuinely, the worst drivers in the world live in Tennessee.
They didn't used to.
Oh man, maybe they're all transplants. I don't know, but the drivers here are
You
awful.
you want to make some
All of
people
them.
mad on this podcast? It's the Californians, man.
Oh,
That's what it is, dude.
oh
They
yeah.
can't drive, bro.
California. Who the hell would want to go there? Like
They can't
I've been to
drive.
California, but
They're
man,
all here, dude. They all
if
moved
you
here.
unless you pay me fucking $2 million a year, you can't get me to move there.
You couldn't
No
afford to live
way.
there for $2 million a year.
I know.
Be too expensive. Well,
And that's one thing living down here too is it's far less expensive to live here than it is in Massachusetts. That's for sure.
yeah, that's wild too, man. Like that's crazy. Just
Yeah.
because it's so expensive here. Like I can't imagine it being more expensive.
It's
But
I do laugh when people say that. They're like, "Oh, Nashville, it's so expensive here." Like my
yeah,
rent here is $900 a month less.
no kidding. Wow.
Yeah. And I wasn't even in Boston. I was like a half hour outside of Boston.
Jeez, man, that's
I
wild.
mean, yeah. So
That's
it's
wild.
pretty. Yeah, it's actually not that expensive down here if you can maintain the same salary, the same income.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Well, so let's keep going with the
Sure.
career. So you go you miss graduation. Now you're what does that look like? You said you were staying in the same area as the drill sergeant. So you
Yeah.
classing up or you graduate and then you're moving on. Like what does that look like
Oh,
before you
so I never graduated. I never went to a graduation. I graduated. I got all my certificates, all the training stuff that said, "Hey, you're an infantryman now, right?"
Mhm.
Come early February, I think it was. I reported to my unit, and my first sergeant that I reported to he was a former Marine recon guy who went into the guard after. Uh, awesome guy. First Sergeant Blackburn, and I still thought at this point I was going to Iraq, and he ended up seeing some blood on my shirt through my
Oh,
dressing,
that's right.
and he saw that, and he was like, What's going on there?" And I was like, "Oh shit!" And so I showed him, and he goes, "Wait a second, is that hole in your throat still fucking open?" And I was like, "Yeah, it is. Yes, First Sergeant." And he's like, "You're not fucking going anywhere." And I was like, "Well, what do you mean?" I'm like, "We don't deploy for another couple months. I'll be ready." And he's like, "No. They're going to mobilization station next month. You're not going to be ready for that, and you have to complete all these check the boxes and all this training and qualifications before you can even go down range." So he basically told me on the spot, "You're not going. I'm not going to send you there because then it'll be my ass."
Mhm.
And so that was it. I stayed back while a couple of guys that I knew deployed, and they got back about a year later and started training up with those guys. We went to Afghanistan 2 years after they got back. So basically 3 years, 3.5 years from basic training, I was in Afghanistan.
So I don't remember reading this in a book, but I wanted to ask you because you were in the guard, were you full-time guard or were you working a different job, kind of how the guard normally operates? Like how did
Yeah.
that look for you?
So I started off working just a regular job and
Okay.
being in the guard 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year.
Yeah.
And then after about year and a half, we knew Afghanistan was coming up. And so for the roughly 2 years leading up to Afghanistan, I went to my readiness NCO and was like, "Hey, can you put me on some orders? I, don't like this civilian work that I'm doing. And, you know, I just, I want to do this full time."
Yeah.
And so during that time, I actually tried to leave the guard a couple times because at this point, I had learned about what Army Rangers were. I had learned about what Green Berets were. I enjoyed serving. I enjoyed the infantry, and I wanted to really test myself and see what I was capable of. And so that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to leave the guard and go full time. And at that point, with Afghanistan on the radar and on the schedule, they didn't release me.
Mm.
They were like, "We need the numbers, and you're going to go to Afghanistan with us. You can do what you want after that, but there's no way they're going to let you out right now," is what I was told. So, uh, went to Afghanistan in 2010, um, and by that point, going back to your question about was I full time, those 2 years leading up to Afghanistan, I was on several different sets of orders,
Mhm.
whether it was military schools or recruiting help or help around the armory or whatever. I was full time with the guard leading up to my deployment to Afghanistan for 2 years, maybe a little over 2 years.
Okay, that makes
I,
sense.
I think I went to like 11 or 12 different schools,
Wow.
and they just kept throwing me in schools to keep me on orders to help me out, basically. Um, that I was on other full time orders leading up to the deployment.
Nice, okay. Yeah, I was just curious how that worked.
Yeah. So you can be full time guard. You could be, 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year. It really
Mhm,
depends on what's happening in your civilian life. If you have a stable job, if you're a cop, if you're a firefighter, you're electrician, whatever,
mhm.
you're obviously going to do that job. And I was
Yeah,
young. I hadn't finished college yet. So I didn't have a ton of options. And I was fortunate enough to have a phenomenal readiness NCO that was willing to find me orders anywhere.
yeah, that's
To
awesome. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
he's the best. His name Dan Hall. Always, I've never met a guy in my life that was better at taking care of soldiers than him.
Nice.
But
That's
yeah,
awesome. Well, you wanna walk us through your deployment a little bit? And I
yeah,
know you
sure,
shared a lot of that in the book, but I'd, like for you to share a little bit about that too.
yeah, no. So of course, I during those 2 years, I was on orders going to all those schools. My goal was to get promoted to sergeant and be a team leader when I went to Afghanistan, and fortunately, I did that. I made sergeant. Probably, I think I got promoted to corporal about 6 months before the deployment. And then right when orders were cut for the deployment, they promoted me and a bunch of other guys uh, who they needed to fill team leader slots. So they promoted me to sergeant for that. I got very lucky. They did it kind of like a draft, and they drafted guys into the platoons because the way we were deployed was our battalion went to Afghanistan, and each platoon got assigned a province. So we deployed in kind of platoon size elements to these provinces to do security for each provincial reconstruction team. And so that was our job as infantry guys, to be security. So we got drafted, and I got fortunate, man. I got lucky. I got drafted by Mike Burns, who's now my best friend. He's actually deployed right now. He's a CSM in the guard, but he's doing, I think, his last rotation. I think it's his fifth deployment. But got recruited, or excuse me, drafted by my best buddy. He wasn't my best buddy at the time. We kind of had a rocky thing a little bit, not really, but we would butt heads a little bit. But yeah, he's my best friend in the world now. So I got to work for him, and again, we deployed as security forces for a provincial reconstruction team. Basically, what that is, it's a team full of experts in agriculture, civil affairs, medicine, and all these different specialties, where they would go into these regions of the province and assess the needs of these villages within those regions, and kind of figure out what is it that they need to live their lives,
Mhm,
whether it's, again, agriculturally, medically, educationally, so those things. So essentially what we would do is we would get on target, we would secure a perimeter around whatever area we were going, whether that was a village, whether that was a district center. Uh, but yeah, that was our job, just security. We'd secure that area, and the provincial reconstruction team, those specialists would go into the village, talk to the elders, do their assessment, and we would either sleep in the village, we'd sleep in the district center, or we would head back to base. As a 3-4 day missions where we'd hit different villages or district centers in a row, so that we get more work done in a shorter amount of time instead of going back to base every single day. So we were out there, we were sleeping with the locals, we were sleeping in the district centers, we were working with the Afghan National Army and the Afghan National Police to conduct, those types of missions and operations. But yeah, man, for me, it was a really cool experience to work with some of the people we got to work with.
mhm.
Our commander and senior enlisted were both SEALs, who were basically they were in charge of the PRT, and then we had a team of guys that were like SEAL Team 8, and they came out
Mm.
with us whenever they saw fit. If we were going to a hot area, they always wanted to jump on with us, so they did. But yeah, that was essentially our mission, was Ghazni Province, RC East in Afghanistan, and that's what we did, was, again, security, and uh, yeah, it was fun.
Was it unnerving sometimes being around the local, especially the Afghan police and stuff like that? I mean, I've read Nick Lavery's book and his
Yeah.
story, and I mean, I know with some of the army units being embedded with those types of, forces, was that did that ever cross your mind? Like, "Can I trust these people? Like, what's going on here?"
Yeah, no, and that was always in the back of my mind. And anytime we're on security anywhere, obviously you're always vigilant, and you're looking around and you're looking at
Right.
everybody. You're looking at the locals, but man, I always had my eyes on the A and knew where they were, and the AMP, because you did hear about these insider attacks. Our civil affairs guys would tell us about them and kind of not warn us, but like be aware.
Yeah.
So I was always looking at those guys and just, you know, not because I expected something to happen, but, just in case. It's
Right.
just for me, it was just an awareness thing. And I think a lot of guys felt the same way. And we're trying to keep an eye on those guys as well.
Yeah, I'm sure, I'm
Because it is
sure.
unnerving, because we don't know these guys. Your guys, because you've been training with them for a couple of years, and, leading up to this deployment, these guys, their families. And so it's very different. It's a different trust factor. And it really is hard to establish that when you're working with a partner force. But it's also a requirement
Yeah.
to have a level of that to conduct these operations successfully.
Yeah. That's definitely gotta be unsettling, not knowing who's beside you like that.
Yeah.
Was that deployment, was that kinda what you anticipated when you got there? Like, what was that like for you? What as far as, like, getting in country and now you're actually in a combat zone, like, how was that for you? Like, how did you feel?
Um, I mean, I was ready for it. I wanted it bad, man.
Mhm.
I told you as soon as I joined it, I just wanted to be in a fight. I wanted to, the whole deployment, I was just like itching,
Yeah.
and that I couldn't wait to get in my first gunfight. I couldn't wait to, you know, get into it. And, as bad as you want that, that, um, the effects of that can be, you know, unfavorable at
Mhm.
times. And, I'm very lucky and fortunate to say, we didn't lose any of our guys. And I love being able to say that. And so, yeah, but getting over there and getting into that situation, it was at first just kind of like I was always on edge. I just, whatever. But you do develop, I don't want to call it complacency, but you develop a level of comfortability with living that way. And um, you realize when you get home that it's far less normal than you think, because you can't just turn that off,
Right.
right? Uh, you can't turn off that vigilance just like flipping a switch, and being aware of everything around you, just like flipping a switch. It takes time. And so, yeah, it was definitely unsettling at times, but it was exactly what I wanted. I got everything out of that deployment that I had hoped for, including, the amount of combat that I saw, and getting everybody home okay, and meeting and being able to work with some phenomenal people. So, that deployment, again, it gave me everything that I hoped to get out of at least the first deployment, and which ultimately ended up for me my only deployment.
What was your faith like at that point? Can you
That's
get
a
into
great
that?
question, man. Because when I deployed, I was a believer. I wasn't somebody who went to church or even read the Bible, but I had a belief system that was founded as a kid, that I carried with me my entire life, and just believing in God and His Word. And um, but when I got overseas and started to experience certain things, it was for me. I started to question a lot of it, and I never said bad things about God or religion, or um, looked down on anybody who maintained their faith. But for me, I took a step back from it for about 10 years, because I just had a lot of questions. And uh, yeah, I didn't start believing again until a few years ago,
I
or practicing it more,
gotcha.
until
Okay.
a few years ago. But yeah, for me, it was unsettling to feel like, here I am, I'm over in somebody else's country doing this work, and their religion says we need to kill you. And that was just, it was tough for me to wrap my head around that, and try to maintain my own system of faith and values in that regard. So it wasn't a dramatic thing or anything like that, but I took a step back. I was just like, okay, I got questions here.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I've actually heard that a lot from guys that have experienced combat that went into, the military as Christians or believers, and then they kinda had that pivot point once they got overseas. I had a guy on the show, Justin Garcia, was in the Marine Corps, and it's a very similar story to yours, man. So I was just curious. And I was a guy that walked away from the Lord too. So I mean, I get it, man. I just want to ask you, 'cause I like to bring that up on my show and talk about
Sure.
faith. And
Yeah.
so let's kind of pivot to, once you got back and you're trying to readjust. And this is where I kind of want to get into the mental health piece. Like I
Yeah.
know PTSD is a big thing, adjusting back into quote unquote normal society, relationships, that kind of stuff. Can you kind of show us what the world looked like for Denny when you came home from Afghanistan?
Yeah. So for me, coming home was just ugh. It was kind of a mess, really. All I wanted to do was drink. I injured my shoulder while I was deployed. I received, I think, 4 cortisone shots in my right shoulder, two in my left, two in my right elbow. So I was at the aid station a lot getting cortisone shots. And yeah, so coming home, getting into surgeries, being depressed, experiencing PTSD, and struggling big time just with my mental health. And for about 8 months straight, all I did was drink, and I drank every single day. I would sneak alcohol around my wife. She would, say she went into the other room or whatever. She'd know I'd be just having a drink here and there, but she didn't know that, here I am sneaking shots and, um, drinking way more than I should, and telling her, yeah, I went to lunch and, I didn't have a drink, but really I had like four. So I was lying about, my alcohol abuse, and just kind of letting her know and making her think everything was okay. When in reality, man, I was crumbling, and just being around normal people was very difficult for me because, you know, I still had all of these things I was processing and, you know, trying to deal with. And um, I couldn't be in normal social settings with people who were talking about their jobs or, just regular shit. And then you're hearing people complain about things that aren't real problems, and you start to
Yeah.
get resentful and angry about that. And so for me, adjusting and becoming a civilian again was very difficult. Um, and that's funny to say because, it's not like I was an active duty guy. I was pretty much a civilian and then a soldier and then a civilian again. I mean, I guess I was active duty in the guard prior, but um, it definitely was difficult to try to snap out of that military mode after getting home.
Well, don't discredit yourself, man, because you're still dealing with all of that childhood trauma, and now
Yeah.
you're going into a role where your life is in danger. You're in country on a deployment, so I mean, it's got to be compounded, over time. And I mean, I can relate to the alcohol piece 100%, man. I don't have PTSD from deployment, but I escaped in a bottle too, and
Yeah.
self sabotage, and it's very common for men, and that's why I want to get into this. So anybody out there listening right now can, maybe understand where other men are coming from and why they resorted to the alcohol or whatever drugs, whatever it may be.
Yeah, and that's why, like, I'm so grateful that I had the counselor that I had. Her name was Angeline at the vet center. And it's funny, man, when she quit, she actually moved down here to Tennessee, to Nashville. I wish I could find her. I wish I knew her last
Wow.
name. But she was just so good because she didn't start with like, "Oh, well, tell me about Afghanistan and, tell me when you went and who you went with and what you experienced." It was like we started from day one. What was your childhood like? All this stuff. And I talked about this on Chad Robichaux's podcast, The Resilient Show, back in November, and Chad put it perfectly. You can give somebody a cup, right? You got this cup, and it's just filling up with all this shit that you're dealing with over and over and over again. And, my cup was full before I joined the army.
Mhm.
And, you throw combat on top of that, and then the effects of combat coming home and adjusting and marital issues and all of that. That cup, it spills over, and that's when you start to really lose yourself. And that's when it's really time to get help. And Angeline really did a great job of um, helping me to uncover, not just the combat trauma stuff, but to address, the why as to some of my other behaviors and why I did certain things based off of my childhood trauma and the things I went through.
Mhm.
And, that's where I relate to people on, well, the majority of the population can relate to me on a human level is, you take my childhood, whether it's, my mom dying from AIDS or not having a father or physical abuse or mental abuse or, name the thing, there's somebody that can relate to that. Even if it's not AIDS, right? You
Mhm.
probably lost somebody or knew somebody who had cancer or some other terminal illness. Um, and, you know, that was the whole point of this book was to just relate to people on a human level and let's connect, let's discuss this stuff and let's get through it together. That's what this whole thing has been about for me, and just sharing my stories is connecting with people on a human level, and again, making people understand that they're not alone.
Yeah. Yeah. Because a lot of men feel alone out there. They feel like they have to numb whatever it is they don't wanna face, you know?
Yeah, and we're conditioned as men to push that down and be strong and be tough and deal with your problems. And I agree with that on a certain level, but we also need to address our shit.
Mhm.
Um, you can be tough, you could be all these things and show you know that you're mentally resilient and physically strong and all these things, but that doesn't mean you don't need to address the issues at hand. And that's one of the things I did with Angelin very well. And um I've been in counseling now for a number of years, and I don't think I'll ever stop because it's just helpful for me to talk to someone. It's helpful for me to understand when I'm not performing at my best, the why behind that. And um it's just, and men need to understand that, yeah, you can be tough, you can be strong, you can be capable of violence, but emotional regulation is the goal here, and that's something Nick and I talk about a lot is emotional regulation, and being able to express the proper emotions at the right time, in the right place, with the right people. And that's what's going to keep you performing at a high level is doing that. If you don't do that, you're going to fall apart, you're going to be cheating on your wife, you're going to be drinking, you're going to be participating in all these self-destructive behaviors that ultimately are the demise of a good man.
Mhm.
And I've been there and I've done it.
And it takes more strength to ask for help than to stay quiet and, you know, I like to use the word self-sabotage, but whether that's through alcohol,
Hmm.
drugs, whatever you wanna call it. I
Yeah.
had a therapist on, a few weeks ago, and she brought this point up. She said we were talking about first responders, and I brought up, it's very common in the first responder world to have affairs, and she said what happens is it's the perception of the world. So if you see the world as bad, like all the time, like you're just jaded and everybody's a piece of shit and you're jaded, you tend to internalize that. So you look at yourself that way. So you might be more supple to do things like drink too much, have an affair, whatever. And then it's like, well, the world's bad anyway. So what you just said, I like what you said about the good man piece. If you're able to have the courage to get with a therapist or a group of people you trust and you can talk and you can share stuff, get it out and not just let it internalize, it can mold you into who you're really meant to be versus just, hey, I'm a piece of shit because I did this. And I think more men need to hear that because shame will kill you, man. It will destroy you if you let it.
Yeah, 1,000%. And that's been my biggest downfall. And it's something that continues to haunt me is the shame. I for the longest time was like, I am not a good person. I am not a good man. I've done this, 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 and this. Um, Therefore I am bad. And that's why talking to a therapist is beneficial for me. Um, because they remind you that you're human, they remind you of the why. And I still have my days where the shame just hits me in the face, and I'm just like, "Fuck." Like,
Yeah.
I've done some bad shit,
Yeah.
and, uh, yeah, I mean, I'm a human being, and, I feel like I do a pretty good job of, addressing my issues and things like that and trying to be better, but I still have my days where I don't wanna be here.
Mhm.
That's the
Yeah.
truth.
Yeah.
But that's why it's so important to stay on top of your mental health and stay on top of, you know, your end goal and what it is you want to get out of this life, because ultimately it is up to you,
Mhm.
and the actions that you take. And that's why I call my book Wired for Action, because it everything that your life becomes as a result of your action or inaction. Um, and so that's always my message, is to recognize, where you need help, address it, and take action.
Mhm. Let's circle back because you kind of mentioned earlier that you kind of stepped away from your faith and then you found it again. What can you go through that? Like what brought you back to your faith? Was it going through therapy and kind of learning more about yourself? Like, can you explain that to our listeners?
So for me, that wasn't it at all. For me, it was partially out of boredom. I was
Mm,
dating a really good girl with a phenomenal family. Her dad was very religious, goes to church every week, and I basically asked him, like, "Hey, man, I'm starting to get curious again. I have a Bible. Where should I start?" And he told me to read the New Testament. And so I started there and I read it and just started to see all the correlations in the scripture and in my life and the mistakes that I've made, and just started to understand that, there's something here, and just continued to read, and my belief grew stronger. And, um, just last week I found a church down here in Nashville. And so back in church, and yeah, we'll see where it goes, man. I'm all in.
that's awesome, man. I love to hear that. That's awesome. I stepped out on my faith for a long time, and then I actually not getting into my whole story, but I had to hit rock bottom to find Christ. Basically, lose everything that was important to me, and then I realized I can't control everything. God is in control, and I needed Him, so I actually had to surrender to kind of pick up my life and my pieces, and that's kind of given me a new purpose in life, man, is to help men not make the same stupid mistakes I did because I was too full of pride and shame to ask for help and to find Christ and say, "Hey, you know what? I've done a lot of bad things too, but God loves me and he'll never leave or forsake me despite what my past is." And that's I know a lot of men struggle with that, man. And here in the
Yeah.
South, I know you're still new to the Nashville area. There's a lot of church hurt down here, and so we're trying to let folks know like, "Hey, doesn't matter. You're worthy of Christ no matter who you are and what you've been through."
Yeah, and I think I'm still working on that final piece of, like, completely surrendering, right?
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
think that's where going back into church is helpful to me now, and where it's gonna be helpful.
mhm. Well, let's talk about, we've kinda talked about your book, and I'd like for you to talk about your podcast a little bit, Be the Standard. Can you tell us the motivation behind that? Was that I know you mentioned in your book, you kinda were looking at different options, how to share your story. Can you kinda get into
Yeah.
that a little bit?
Yeah, so I wasn't sure how to go about sharing my story, and, um, I reached out to somebody who's very prominent on social media and kinda asked him for some ideas as how I should go about doing that, if I should do a book, if I should do a podcast, if whatever. And his suggestion was do a podcast, put out some content on YouTube, put out some content on Instagram. If you want to do a book, do it later, and then you'll have somebody to sell a book to. And you'll reach a broader audience if you do
Good
it that way.
advice. Yeah.
And so that's what I did. I did the podcast. I had it out for almost 2 years before I published my book. And, I think it was the right move. I really do. I built up a good following on Instagram, a good following on LinkedIn, and I've already sold more copies than, a self-published author typically will, in a lifetime. So, I'm still hopeful that the book will reach more people. And, yeah,
That's awesome, man. That's good advice too. I never thought of it that way. Like, do the
me
podcast
either.
first. Yeah, that's really smart. And I think I know who you're talking about because it's in your book, but I don't know if you want to share his name or not. But yeah, that's
Yeah.
good advice.
No, it's Andy Frisella. He's awesome dude. Anytime I've ever, sent him a DM or anything or just responded to his story, he always responds back. He follows me. He's super nice guy, super down to earth. I don't really know him on a personal level, but he's been supportive of me, and I'm obviously very supportive of him and grateful that he gave me that advice.
Cool. Well, I've kind of got a fun fact, and I was going to segue into this next topic with it. So, Nick Lavery wrote the foreword for your book, and he also wrote the foreword for a previous guest I had on the show, Nick O'Kelly. So, I wanted you to kind of get into, your speaking, you're going to corporations. Like, how did you and Nick meet? How did that all come up?
Yeah, so Nick and I had just, we had exchanged messages on Instagram a few different times or LinkedIn a few different times, and but we didn't know each other. It was very short and, you know, not very full of substance or anything like that. There were probably for the 8 months or so leading up to meeting Nick, I had two or three different people offer to introduce me to Nick. You guys are both from Massachusetts. You guys will hit it off. You guys kind of look alike and all this shit. And so each time somebody tried to offer me just like an invite or you know um, to connect with Nick, I always said no, because I don't see the point of connecting with anybody, especially a guy that's busy, just to be like, oh hey, what's up? I'm Denny, right?
Hmm.
Then Chris Cathers, who runs the Brothers Keeper Veterans Foundation, he invited me down there and Nick was the keynote speaker. And so I went to his gala. It was pretty cool. Hundreds of people, and I think they raised hundreds of thousands of dollars. It was a great event. But Nick was the keynote speaker, and we met there. And as soon as we met, and he knew I was from Massachusetts and everything, we just kind of hit it off, and the conversation went well. And then he asked me to. He said, "Hey, send me a DM, send me your number, and let's get on a call soon." So I did that. Um, we got on a call about a week later, and that's when I told him. At that time, I had just started doing speaking engagements. I think I was on my second or third one at that point. And so I kind of ran him through my story. I ran him through my slide deck of what I present when I speak. I told him that I was thinking about writing a book as well that I wanted to publish within a year, and just kind of let him know about the path I was on. He was started following me on Instagram, so he saw all my content as well. And yeah, man, it just turned into a great opportunity where he invited me on his team, Precision Components, to be a speaker. He knew about my leadership experience in the Army as well as in the corporate world, and offered me a position as well as a leadership consultant. And so now I'm working with him in like three different businesses that he has, and he's awesome, man. He's
Nice.
been a great friend. I can call him anytime I need anything, and uh, just awesome.
Yeah, I read it's funny, I read his book, when it first came out, and, yeah, I
Yeah.
was he seemed like a really good guy. Yeah, that's incredible, man. So what, going forward, you've got a lot going on, man. You've got a lot to offer. You're sharing your story. What's next for you on the horizon?
Yeah, that's a great question. Still going to continue to do the speaking events, try to push the book more, get my story out there even more, get on some more podcasts. I should be doing more of that. Um, but also working with Nick on Pineland University, which is essentially a prep course to get guys ready for SF.
Nice.
And I'll be running operations for that business that he has. And so I'll start off as the director of operations and help him get that off the ground. I think we're looking at April or June for a launch. And yeah, that's next in terms of that stuff. And I'll work my 9 to 5 and keep doing what I'm doing.
Nice, man. Well, if there's a man out there listening to this episode, Danny, and he's on the verge of giving up, what would you say to that man?
Find the person closest to you, let them know exactly how you're feeling, and ask for help. Um, Whether it's even if somebody you don't know, somebody that you admire, reach out to somebody, tell them what you're going through, ask them for the resources to get you into a better place where you feel better about yourself. Um, we all need that. We all need to talk to somebody, and we all hit that space where we're ready to give up. So, my advice is don't do that. Take action, ask for help, and lean on the people that you feel comfortable leaning on.
It's good advice. Thanks for sharing that, man. Well, I'm gonna close this out with a prayer. You ready?
Yeah, yeah,
Father, thank you for today. Thank you for just the ability tonight to share Denny's story and to talk about you, Lord, and also spread awareness for men's mental health. I pray that you just continue to bless Denny, be with him as he's on his mission to help others, to help veterans, and to help just everyone out there, Lord, everyone from any walk of life that has just dealt with trauma, has faced alcohol abuse, drug abuse, whatever it may be, Lord. And I just pray we can continue to push forward, to raise awareness for men's mental health, and just be a light in this world of dark. And it's in your mighty name that I pray. Amen.
amen.
Thank you for tuning in to the Peace, Power, and Purpose podcast. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel on YouTube and Spotify, and make sure you pick up a copy of Wired for Action. Denny, thank you so much for coming on tonight, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you. This is awesome. I think we need to do
Yeah.
more of this sharing.
Yeah. Love to.
We need to do more collaboration.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Come up.
I like that you're 20 minutes away. Let's
Yeah.
try to meet in three
Yeah.
dimensions at some point.
Yeah. That's right. I'll come show you the big booming town of Franklin sometime. We'll go out to dinner or something.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah, man. It'd be fun. I know a couple good spots. We can go grab dinner. Go. I don't drink anymore, but we can go. I'll go grab a cup of coffee or something.
Yeah. No, I have my moments where I go on these little things where I'll drink 2 or 3 days, but
Yeah,
I don't drink a lot. I try not to. My fitness is important to me, especially
yeah.
now. I'm trying to get ready for the summer.
I know, man. It's beach season too, man. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
I am not in
awesome.
the condition to be taking my shirt off yet. I got to get there.
Well, it's winter time, man. It's supposed to snow
Yeah.
this weekend, so we won't be taking our
Oh,
shirt
fuck.
off.
Don't say that.
That's what they
I'd want
say,
it to
dude.
leave the snow.
Dude, I'm telling you, like Tennessee has the weirdest weather, and we don't really have four seasons here anymore. So it might be
Yeah.
75 one day, and the next day it's snowing. Who knows? I hope we miss it. I don't want any snow, man. I'm ready for summer. But
Yeah.
you've probably seen enough snow to last a lifetime coming from up north. So
Yeah. We get enough. I mean, that's one of the things I hated the most about being up there is the cold and
yeah,
and the snow. I mean, it's funny here too because like it was like 13 degrees one day and then like 2 days later it was like 70.
it's
I
nuts,
was like,
man.
okay.
Yeah, it's nuts, dude. Welcome to
Still
the
still
South.
it's still better than, you know, 5 months of just freezing, right?
I couldn't do that. There's no way, man. I couldn't handle that. There's no way. It'd be nice to like every once in a while, but not 5 months of it. I couldn't do it.
Yeah, I've already decided I'm going back home. I think I'm gonna head home for the weekend of like the 4th of July when it's
Mm.
nice up there.
Yeah, yeah. Awesome, man. Well, man, I really appreciate your time tonight, brother.
No, I appreciate yours as well, man. This is a cool podcast. I like what you're doing, man. I see all your content. I think you're doing it the right way, and I think that's incredibly important. So, yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. God bless you, brother, and take care.